Welcome, everybody, to episode 9 of the Hump Day Huddle, or in this case, because Joe's got to get to class and I got to get to work this Wednesday morning, the quick no huddle preview of the Georgia game coming up on Saturday. Getting straight into it. Obviously, with the bye week, we have no game to recap. Texas heading for what is up to now the biggest game of the season. That things like that tend to happen as you get into November and December of a college football season, but still, this is an absolutely massive game. It was circled on every single one of y'all's calendars coming into this season. 6:30 Central Time between the hedges in Athens, Georgia, Sanford Stadium, number 10 Texas, taking on number I should know what they are, Georgia, off the top of my head. Joe, how you feeling about this game? My co-host,
Yeah,
buddy, Mr. Joseph Duffey.
yeah, number five, Georgia, I believe. Um, but yeah, I'm doing good. Glad to be back on for the quick no huddle. But yeah, this Georgia team, they've kind of had Texas's number these past two matchups. It's a shame what happened last time in DKR because wow, what a spectacle that was. I'm sure we were both waiting in line for hours. What a
Yes,
day. It was a great day
I was
regardless.
in the
Great
second
memories.
row.
Oh my goodness, it paid off for you for sure.
Mm.
I think I was like halfway up the student section. But glad to be back on and break this down because Georgia is a tough place to play, and Texas could have taken advantage last year, but they couldn't. And now Carson Beck is gone, and now some other names from their team and Texas's team are gone. We'll see how they fare there between the hedges because they've already lost to Alabama. They're not infallible this year at Sanford Stadium. So I think Texas has a solid chance, but it will not be easy and under the lights at Georgia.
With those fans boozing all day, they could have gotten some reprieve if they landed where Oklahoma landed against that same Crimson Tide, because they are the time slot before on ABC. Of course, despite the fact that I work for an ABC station, I can watch none of it without illegal streaming because I have YouTube TV. Yay, carriage disputes. Anyway, um, I guess what kind of impact could that have on the game? I believe Bama did go between the hedges and win in a night game earlier this year. I mean,
Yeah, they
ESPN
did.
would have been stupid not to put that at night, but that broke Georgia's nation leading home winning streak of 20 plus. So it is still an extremely tough place to go.
Oh yeah, they don't lose under the lights. I mean, that last class, I believe, that won the championship for Georgia, they didn't lose a single primetime game. They didn't lose a
Yeah.
single game at night at Sanford Stadium. That second team that went back to back for Georgia against TCU. Those seniors never lost a night game.
Wow.
And you think about that Bama team that just went in there with Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson and found a way to do it. It shows that times could slightly be changing. I don't think Gunnar Stockton is exactly what Carson Beck was last year, with all due
Yeah.
respect. And Carson Beck is not necessarily, hitting off on all cylinders this season. But I feel like there's less fear for Texas fans in this Georgia team than there was a Carson Beck team. Uh,
Yeah.
you can't really compare this game's hype to last year's regular season because Gunnar Stockton wasn't competing then. Carson Beck's injury changed the whole game in the SEC championship.
Yeah, because Stockton wasn't getting first team reps. And I would even say that had that injury not happened, I said this to a friend of mine leaving Mercedes-Benz Stadium last December. If Gunnar Stockton doesn't come into that game, a Beck led Georgia team might lose and might fold against that Texas defense. That game, especially early on, Joe, if you'll remember, was essentially a competition between the defenses and the offenses not trying to trip over their own feet. That was that game.
Yeah,
And
pretty
Stockton
much.
brought them some energy and was able to scramble and evade the pass rush better and extend a few plays. And that ended up helping them. And we've seen Gunnar Stockton make some big plays. I mean, that seed he dropped against Tennessee, that was a beautiful throw in overtime of that game to bail out Georgia. And this leads me into something else I wanted to talk about coming into this game, Joe. This Georgia team, I didn't come up with this. Matt Berry came up with this with ESPN. They are like a boa constrictor. You think you're in the game, and they just gradually strangle you with physicality and defense. Except when and they don't play a complete full 4 quarters. They gave a full 4 quarter effort against Mississippi State, and they did much better against the Bulldogs than the Longhorns did. But I'm not going to put that much stock in that. That's Mississippi State. That's
Game they're supposed
unfortunately
to win.
a game you're supposed to win. SEC doormat. If Georgia plays all 4 quarters on Saturday, not loving Texas's chances. Currently, the ESPN FPI has Texas at a 40% chance to win. Last I saw, the spread moved up to 5.5. Georgia is a 5.5 point favorite. I think that's about right. Um, Longhorns certainly have a chance, but I think this leads me to a key for the game, Joe. They have to start fast. They
Absolutely.
they cannot have an offense stuck in neutral for a quarter, quarter and a half, and expect to win this unless the defense can flip the field.
Absolutely. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I see it right now. The run game is not gonna be effective. It's been
Yeah.
the same thing the last two matchups against Georgia. Trey Wisner can't get anything going. No one can from the backfield. This Georgia front seven always seems to be stout and prepared against the run for Texas. And so Archer's going to have to come through, which he has the last 3 weeks. He really has for this team. This offense has looked much different against Vanderbilt at DKR. And so leading into the bye, that is something that has been really encouraging to see, considering that before Kentucky, before Mississippi State, there wasn't much to be hype about, or I guess even before the Red River game when Arch looked much better. People were really slandering the young kid. And it sucked to see because he's only started oh so many games, and
Yeah.
now fast forward going against Georgia at Sanford Stadium under the lights. He's gonna have to come through again, and you hate to put so much pressure on this guy, but that's why you come to Texas, right? That's why
Yep.
people say you come to Texas is for games like this. A team that's 7-2 that's lost a game they absolutely shouldn't have against Florida,
In another
and
tough environment.
oh,
Tough,
even
tough
tougher.
environment. And that wasn't even a night game, folks.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a 3 o'clock game, 2 o'clock game. Here come these Texas Longhorns on offense. I don't know if the run game is going to be effective. We're going to need this receiving core. Look, Texas is going to need the receiving core to at least, get open for Arch. The O line especially has to give him time, and that's going to be a tough thing to
And
ask
you
for.
saw the O line last year. Granted, teams change, especially in this modern era of college football, year to year more than they ever have. But you saw last year, Texas had 4 NFL offensive linemen on the offensive line, including a first rounder, including a day 2 pick, 2 day 3 picks. They lose that continuity on the offensive line and that talent. And even last year, they struggled, especially in that game in Austin, keeping a clean pocket for Quinn Ewers. I am very worried. And with the run game point, you led me into another key for the game. I think the run game, in a way, Joe, is going to be the canary in the coal mine early in this game. If Texas is able, I'm not talking about big runs. I'm talking about staying ahead of the chains, 1st and 10 to 2nd and 6 runs. Those runs that you build a drive upon, those runs that aren't sexy, but you need. if Texas can get those, maybe the boa constrictor Bulldogs type of squad isn't showing up on Saturday night. And of course, that would benefit UT. If they can establish the run, they can't have Arch do it all himself. I think they have a fighting chance, a real chance.
It's just wild how Georgia games work because, like you were saying, they don't play a lot of complete games. And Mississippi State
No,
was, probably their best played game all year, but Ole Miss, Ole Miss, I thought
yeah,
had a very good chance. That's a really good team. And the Rebels, who I really like to watch on the side as
oh
well.
yeah.
But the Florida Georgia game, I'm telling you,
It's a
that game
rivalry. It's always close.
rivalry
Yeah,
always close for some strange reason.
party
I thought they would have beat
atmosphere.
them by 10 at least.
Yeah,
But my goodness, the
had to
Tennessee
come
game,
back in that game. They were down as much as they were up in that game.
the Auburn game is what kind of stuns me, honestly,
Yeah.
because that's a game with I know it was in Auburn, but you look at that team that Georgia was going against, and they weren't that good. They weren't that good, and there was a lot of officiating mishaps that
Oh,
might have
that's
gone
right. Yes,
Georgia's
there was a
way.
big call in that game. Yes.
It's unreal how football works sometimes because they only scored 20 on Auburn that night. And it makes me think that, again, it doesn't take much, or at least you don't have to be perfect in a game to win. Just have at least a point over. It's the same mentality
Yep.
for Texas. Didn't play exactly elite against Oklahoma in the Red River game. Didn't play elite against Kentucky. Found a way to escape with a Matthew Caldwell play in OT. I think this Texas team just has to find a way, like you were saying, to get those 4 or 5 yard carries. If they can get that going, get the run game going, I like their chances on third down. If you can get to third and medium, third and short, I trust that Steve Sarkisian can put Arch Manning in the plays that he needs to move the chains and get to the red zone. Now, red zone has also been an issue for
I
the
was going to
team.
say, what about what about third and goal? Have you heard of third and goal?
Yeah. Well, you can break that one down if you want, because
I,
wow.
well, really, there's not much we sitting here can break down. It's does he call something conducive to what Kirby Smart and the Georgia sideline calls? Because especially if you have a couple shots at it inside the five, even if you didn't have Texas's talent, you would say you got to strike while the iron's hot. You got to score inside the five against Georgia. You know, it's the
Mhm.
same concept. And I think for any team going to Sanford Stadium, it's my final key to the game. You've led me into all three keys. Red zone execution. But on both sides of the football, if they can get a little bit of momentum, turning a would-be Georgia touchdown into a field goal, or on offense, they can actually finish drives. That's how you go in there and get a win like that. And that is going to be so key for the Longhorns.
Texas was 7 of 11 on third down against Vandy.
That's
I
right.
will say there's a thing that gives me slight hope as well in this game. All due respect to Quinn Ewers, but when pressure was riding in his face with that rush last year, I knew he was done. And knowing this O-line is not that good this year, there's slight confidence in knowing that Arch is more of a runner. So I think that it's
Yeah.
a little cool that this time around for Texas, there's not so much a statue in the pocket who can't really move too much. And that's not disrespect to Quinn. They just have different
Yeah.
play styles, right? Quinn is, he prides himself, it seems to be as like a gunslinger almost. Arch can throw the rock as well, but he can also run. And knowing that he can run, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of design QB runs in this Georgia game, like we've seen so far this season. And if pressure gets in Arch's face, escapability could be really huge from the QB this game.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing that can help the Longhorns in Sanford Stadium, as opposed to the SEC championship and the last regular season game they played at DKR, is that Arch can actually use his legs to escape pressure because there will be pressure in his face, knowing this online and knowing how well Georgia plays at
Oh,
Sanford.
yeah. Well, and you could use, a tailback draw and you just go empty with Arch, and so you make the defense think the running threat is removed and have him on a quarterback draw, like you said, a designed run. It's a good way. The draw is that slight delay to keep the pass rushers honest, because if they're rushing upfield to rush the passer, boom, B gap is open, open, open. If those ends rush up the field for Arch, that's going to be an easy read as long as the defensive tackle doesn't make a great play. I think that would be a great way for Texas to get things going. Um, but as this is the 2-minute drill hump day huddle this week, going in towards predictions, but we can let this breathe a little bit. I'm not sure, despite everything we've said, that it's going to be enough. I am just not sure that when it comes down to it, because even if they're able to establish the run some, inevitably third down is so important. They're going to run into 3rd and 6 or more. And the question is, I've said this before, who's getting you that separation on the outside, Joe, against these Georgia DBs? I'm not sure. I'm not sure because DeAndre Moore has been pressed into service on the boundary a lot more than he did last year when he got to be in the slot some, and that benefited him last year. Now he's up against usually one of the other team's best corners, and he doesn't fare as well. Where is that separation going to come from? Is it going to take a size mismatch utilizing Jack Endries? Will they hit a big play to Wingo? How would you try to utilize the matchups out there if you were Sark?
Well, firstly, I think this is going to be a game where Sark gets into his bag of tricks. I got a feeling this is going to be a game we see a little bit of trickery. So mark that down and watch for it this Saturday. We are going to see some trick plays, possibly, going to a wide open injuries. Who knows? Maybe a double pass downfield. I think that Emmett Mosley can be a guy to look out for sure. The transfer from Stanford. You saw him get more active the last 2 games, especially against Vanderbilt. Ryan Wingo, I don't know if there's an update yet on how he's looking because you saw the dislocation with his thumb against the Commodores at DKR. Hopefully he's good to go. As far as it stands, I don't see that he's going to be out for that game. But I think Wingo can be definitely accountable in this game. I don't know too much about DeAndre Moore. He had a really good touchdown, a 42-yarder, I think, in the SEC championship against this defense off like a slant, I think, from Quinn.
Hey, Deb.
Third quarter transition score to keep Longhorns in the game.
Tackle broken. Yeah, they missed a
Yeah,
shoestring, I believe. Yeah.
yeah. You got Dan Jackson moving at the safety position now for that juke. But I think it might have to be a game where the tight end can break off a big play. Jack Endries, he doesn't get a lot of targets, but I don't know if this is going to be a Livingstone game. I really think it's going to be how well can Ryan Niblett get off a punt return? How well is your field positioning? Can you move the chains on 3rd down? But if you punch it in from 3rd and goal, I think it's either going to be Trey Wisner or Emmett Mosley.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Wisner's physicality could be very key in this game. Real quick before we get to predictions, just wanted to give you guys some background on Georgia. Maybe you haven't been watching them a lot this year. I know a lot of you have. They're a very nationally prominent team. They're in the SEC, but just in case you haven't, Gunnar Stockton is their quarterback. He is at 2,040 yards for the season, 15 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. I would describe him as a game manager with some wheels, usually makes pretty good decisions, knows he has a good defense on the other side of the football, and he plays accordingly. I think that would be a fair assessment. It can make some big time throws, including that one in overtime against Tennessee.
He can take a hit too.
And he can take a hit. And Kirby and those guys in the locker room love that. Like I said, he can run a little bit. He's got 321 rushing yards on the year, 7 touchdowns, which surprises me a little bit. Okay, Gunner. All right. And then you got Frazier and Bowens splitting time out of the backfield. Got about 1,000 yards combined this year. But here's what sticks out to me with them, Joe. I know some of the competition Georgia's played has been bad, but this is their last conference game. Frazier and Bowens, between them, 5.6 yards a carry.
Oh, they can run the ball. I think they're 27th in the
5.6
nation.
yards per carry between them for over 1,000 yards. Um, and then on the outside, you cannot forget about Zachariah Branch, the
Mhm.
USC transfer, electrifying speed. And Joe, I assume you've seen him play.
Mhm.
He's also their leading receiver, 542 yards on the year, 3 touchdowns, much more of a big play threat. I would say for someone who hasn't seen him play, a good comp would be Deshaun Jackson. Maybe won't be that level of player, but could be. That's it. I would say that's his ceiling. Great return specialist. Great deep route guy.
Yeah, I mean this offense is 24th in rush attack in FBS. So prepare for them to run the ball and try to pound the rock on the ground, like you were saying with Nate Frazier and co. I don't expect Gunnar Stockton, like you were saying, to exactly sling it for them, but he knows how to move the chains.
Yep.
I feel like every Georgia quarterback the past 5 or 6 years knows how to move the chains. So expect him to take off if pressure gets in his face as well, because he knows how to take a hit. If you remember the hit against Andrew that he had with Andrew Makuba as Texas was pretty much about to lose in OT, he took a massive shot.
Oh, it was by the end zone. I was right there.
My goodness,
That
I
was,
mean, I
I
thought the
think
guy
that
was done.
that was a play or two before they scored. I think to win it.
Yeah, I think it was 2 plays before.
And Makuba, it looked like he might break the plane, and Makuba hit him like a Mack truck at about the 1 yard line. It made a sound like I heard it
And
from
then
the
with the
crowd.
Disney ending, they bring in Carson Beck to hand it off to
Oh, they did.
ETN and
Of course they
Georgia.
did. Yeah.
Georgia wins the game. Kind of storybook, I guess, the way he got out of the game.
Yeah.
But this team, they find a way, and it's so annoying. Uh, if you're an SEC team watching them, because in the first quarter, or at least the first part of the first half, you think, all right, this is the game that, Georgia comes back down to earth. They had the run in the
Yep.
2020s. Forget about it. Kirby Smart's going to bring them back to normal. And then you see them come to life. And then they look like they're unbeatable. Then they get off the field or they get a turnover on defense. And then the offense scores. And then they're up 10 plus. And then they get another one. They're up 17 plus. That's how quick you can be losing to Georgia. It could be a blink because they'll be in the game, like you were saying, but like a boa constrictor, they just grab you and strangle you out of nowhere, and you'll find yourself looking down 20 plus on the scoreboard, and you're like, how did that happen? Well, they know how to run the ball and they know how to get turnovers, and they're not having as many drops as they were last year. By the way, that was a big narrative from this receiving core last year is that they couldn't catch, and somehow it didn't
Yeah.
matter down the stretch, as they won the SEC championship. Maybe it affected them in the Sugar Bowl as they lost to Notre Dame.
And
But
that was one of those weird games. I remember seeing a good amount of that Notre Dame game. It's a question of what Georgia's going to show up because the right Georgia did not show up to New Orleans that day, and I thought they would.
Mhm.
I believe that last year's Georgia team had as much talent, if not more talent, than Notre Dame had on their roster. And frankly, they just didn't come to play. So Texas is gonna have to execute, but I think if we could wrap everything up into one soundbite of what we're saying, it really the prerequisite here for can Texas win is which Georgia shows up. Because if the best Georgia shows up, or close to that, I just don't think the Horns have it in them. And with that, Joe, what is your pick for this game?
uh, you saying that you're not believing too much in Texas? I have to say, I think that this is a changed Texas team. I think they can find a way just to scrape away
Wow.
in a dogfight, pun intended, at Sanford Stadium. I think Texas can find a way to scrape away maybe 23-21 against Georgia.
We have a similar score range, but as I've been hitting at, maybe it's just the pessimist in me. Can't do it. Can't say Texas for this game. There's too many. Despite coming off a bye week to get healthy, which is something we should mention, that's very important. But you can also flip that and saying you played your best game of the year and then you had a bye week to stunt your momentum. You could flip that either way. Um, I just think Georgia is. a little bit further along as a program than Texas is. I think at the line of scrimmage, it won't be quite the domination that we saw last October in Austin. And so I'm not going to predict a 2-touchdown Georgia win, but I'm going to say 24-14 Georgia.
Whew.
I
By the
think
way,
I think the Dogs get it done, and I think that Arch tries to evade some of that pressure, and those Georgia athletes coming off the edge are just too quick, and their footwork's too good.
really quick, by the way, if they lose this game, Texas, I mean, do they drop far? I mean, this is a good Georgia team.
I
Are they
think it
completely
depends
out of
on
the
the manner of the
CFP?
loss. If you're concerned about the season, Texas fans, obviously a win would be great and would catapult Texas right back up into the middle of the playoff conversation. Now I would say they are on the edge in the hunt, to use the NFL term. But if they keep this within a possession, I think it's still out in front of them because you can still prove to the committee that you're legit if you beat A&M. Because
Absolutely.
A&M, with who they have left, they have like the Citadel, one of those throwaway games, and they have South Carolina. So in all likelihood, A&M is coming into Austin 11-0 as a top three team. So I think it is all still out in front of Texas. I get some people are going to say, "Oh, are you going to reward losing? Are you going to put a 3-loss team in?" No, in this case, to try to remove my Texas colored sunglasses, I think you can because 2 of the 3 losses are to legit top 5 playoff teams on the road. Like
Mhm.
nuance matters. That's very different than being a 2-loss team in the ACC, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I see it. And with that, because we have to get to our other responsibilities, that is going to wrap up the quick no huddle, quick 2-minute drill version of the Hump Day Huddle. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 9 in the books. Be sure to check out our X profiles down below. Check out all the work we're doing, and we will see you guys next week after hopefully a Texas victory.